Greetings, sirs and madams. I'm Traffic Zero, and I am so tired. But you guys want to hear about Armored Core. You're not here for little old me, so yeah, let's go ahead and talk about Armored Core. So, a few days ago, they released a gameplay reveal of Armored Core 6, so we have a lot of details coming out from that. At the same time, they lifted a non-disclosure agreement for a secret event they held in California where they invited a bunch of people to come and play Armored Core 6. So, yeah, a bunch of people got to play the game for about 5 or 6 hours, which is a significant amount of time. So they all learned a bunch of really interesting things just from their personal experience with the game. And then I believe they also each got to have an in-person interview with the director of the game, which, you know, surprised all of them as well. So the gameplay review trailer itself was good, but I found that the hands-on experience that everyone else reported on is much more interesting. And also the interviews with the director were much more interesting than the gameplay reveal trailer itself. So yeah, what we're gonna do in this video is, yeah, we're just gonna try to compile as much information as we can and try to present it in a timely manner. And of course, these types of videos, they require an immense amount of research and editing and just all that type of stuff. So if you guys could just help me out a little bit and, you know, just leave a like on the video, comment and share, all that type of stuff, it would really help me out. Yeah, so for those of you who don't know who I am, I have been around for a while. This channel is very old, and in fact it used to be an Armored Core channel where I did a lot of Armored Core for answers. So yeah, I have been playing Armored Core since Armored Core 2. I did go back and do Master of Arena on the PS1, and I've beaten every Armored Core since those, except for Another Age and Ninebreaker, because I think I only rented like those two. But yeah, I've owned and beaten every other Armored Core. Like after that, I have not played the mobile versions because they're just, you know, they're just ports of other games. So yeah, I probably have thousands and thousands of hours in Armored Core. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of the series, and of course mecha anime and Gundam, all that type of stuff. I am a huge fan of FromSoft. I really respect them as developers. Unfortunately, I just don't play a lot of Souls-like games. They're not really my jam. I did do a complete playthrough of Elden Ring on my channel though, where I pretty much just did everything I could while, you know, just kind of messing around with spear builds because, you know, I main Lance in Monster Hunter. But yeah, that's my background, so you kind of understand where I'm coming from. From what I've seen of the new footage, Armored Core 6 seems to be pretty different from the older games. It seems to kind of maintain the general spirit of the older games, but there's a lot that is very different. And that is not to say, like, different is always bad. That's certainly not true. And of course, the changes, they have their own different context. You know, just because it's different doesn't mean it's worse. Like, they're gonna make up for it in different ways. And of course, like, even if the game seems to be missing some things I find to be extremely important from the older games, like, you know, players being able to outmaneuver each other. Yeah, it could have other things that make up for it. Like, so yeah, we'll definitely see. And from the players that had the hands-on experience with Armored Core 6, the general consensus seems to be that Armored Core 6 is very fun, and everyone can't wait to go back and be able to play it again. And they all seem to say that the game controls really well, which that's not generally stuff you hear about Armored Core, you know, so that actually makes me really happy. Because normally people are like, oh, it's robots are boring, or they'll be like, yeah, I don't understand these controls, it's so complicated, or they'll be like, oh, it's so clunky, like, it's like, yeah, like the robot moves like a real robot, like why can't it be as easy as my Call of Duty? But yeah, like having people like try an Armored Core game for the first time and they're like, yeah, this is really fun, or yeah, this controls really well, or this looks really good, like that's stuff that's almost never said about Armored Core. So I'd say, like, just from the results, like the changes seem to be really good. So yeah, it does make me very happy that the game is making a very good impression for people that are playing it. And yeah, this is nobody likes talking about this anymore, but yeah, for most, well, basically for everyone I've seen do presentations of their hands-on time with Armored Core 6, everybody said that it's not a Souls-like, except for one guy. So I think just statistically we can accept that, Armored Core is not Souls-like, please, but yeah, I'm not going to go into detail about that anymore. Yeah, I'm done talking about that, but yeah, there seems to be a strong consensus now that people actually have their hands on the game, and yeah, it's Armored Core, it's not other stuff. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about some of the findings we have from the footage that's been revealed. Unfortunately, I'm not going to go in any particular order, but yeah, a lot of these people who got their hands on the game, they each discovered like a different set of things, and they all talked to the director about different things. So I'm going to try to just, get as much information as I can here into this one video, but I'm not going to put it in any particular order, so you guys might miss out on stuff if you don't watch all the way through the video. So yeah, I'm holding you hostage if you're interested in those tasty details. So yeah, I am not always a good person either, but yeah, that's okay. Alright, let's go ahead and start talking about some stuff. So from the gameplay reveal, we finally got a look at the user interface for Armored Core 6, which I find it a little goofy that they waited so long. I think the reason is the UI from Elden Ring was just so clean and non-intrusive that they were embarrassed to show like a different type of UI, because Armored Core UIs tend to be very intense. So yeah, here's the Armored Core UI. Of course, it's going to look a little different depending on different contexts of what's happening in combat. But yeah, here, let's go ahead and talk about some of the features of the UI. So here are objectives in the upper left corner. On the left, you have a speedometer. This tends to be not very useful, like how generally fast you're moving if you're at the controls. So personally, I'm probably going to take this off of my UI. You have your armor points here, which this behaves as your hit points. Depending on your build, this will change drastically. So you have your AP count and also an HP bar right here. I guess that's good for people who are more visual, so that's nice. You have your expansion slots. I'm not really sure what counts as an expansion. I know that the players who had early access to the game at the event, they did have access to expansions, but I'm not really sure what counts as one. Maybe things like assault armor do that, but I really don't know. Here are your repair kits. You seem to have a total of 3. And it looks like there are ways to increase the effectiveness of the heals. Although nobody knows if you can increase the number of repairs yet. Yeah, I'm still not a really big fan of this feature. And there seem to be other mechanics going on that kind of mitigate the need for it. We'll talk about that later on. So yeah, that's kind of an interesting topic of discussion. Anyway, this is your scan cooldown. Yeah, so you press down on the D-pad to scan the environment. You can see through walls, like with that. You can't just pop it like all the time. But yeah, it has a few seconds on cooldown, so there's your cooldown meter. Here is your lockbox. It seems very similar to the lockbox from Armored Core 5. Those are all circular. What I haven't seen is lockboxes changing size, which, like, that's a big deal in the older Armored Core games. Basically, the way lockboxes behave is anything you put inside your lockbox, like when you're soft locking, anything you put inside your lockbox is what you're locked onto. And of course, depending on the size of your lockbox, locking on is easier or harder. And, you know, different fire control systems, like all that type of stuff. But yeah, they all seem to be the same size for now, but, you know, we'll find out when we get our hands on it. The lockbox is going to have a lot of stuff that's going to pop in and out depending on what you're targeting. We'll go into those details in a second. Let's go right here. So these are your 4 weapon slots. Left back, left arm, right back, right arm. The left back is empty right now. This is the starting AC, so it's very, very bare bones. So left back is empty. The left arm has a dash, like so. This is for the laser blade to just indicate, yeah, something's there, but it doesn't have ammo. Yeah, so the number on top is the magazine capacity, and the number on bottom is the total ammunition count. And you can see that there are also 4 meters here around your lockbox, and they're tied to your weapons. They are your weapon capacity and their cooldown, and I believe they should indicate reload when you're reloading. So yeah, that way you can just pay attention to whatever you're locked onto and kind of know the condition of your weapons. I think they really should increase the visibility of this a little bit. The lockbox will do more things. We'll talk about that in a moment. Here you have your energy gauge. This will decrease when you're doing things like, when you're using your assault boost and your quick boost. And are there any other things that drain it? Yeah, I know those 2 for sure. Your regular boost, where you're just gliding along the ground, no longer consumes energy. What else consumes energy now? Yeah, maybe just those 2 things. Yeah, we'll talk about the behavior of the energy bar in a second. Okay, this is your stagger meter, or your ACS. I don't quite know what ACS stands for. But yeah, if this thing fills completely up, you'll be staggered and then take double damage during that time. You'll be immobile for a split second, but you will be able to move again. The stagger state continues while you're still mobile, so it lasts for a little bit longer than your down state. So yeah, just don't get this filled up and you'll be a lot safer. You'll notice that the UI does not have a radar. So that's kind of a big deal. Radar really helps you know your orientation with enemy units in older Armored Core games, but instead of a radar, Armored Core 6 has opted to give you a compass, which the compass takes up a lot less real estate. But it's not as informationally rich as a radar, and it's gonna have some limitations. Also, I think that the compass is very faint on the screen. I would like more visibility on this, but I suppose in Armored Core 6 they're gonna want you to rely more on line of sight, which that's, I guess that makes sense, but that's seems unnecessary for a giant robot that could potentially have a lot of sensor suites. But okay, so in a target-rich environment, the compass is going to look like this. So each red square is going to be an enemy unit. You'll have arrows pointing forward or backward to kind of show you, where is this thing relative to you? Is it in front of you? Is it behind you? You'll also see Other points of interest like mission objective objects or targets. I'm not sure what this 155 is, but yeah. So there's your compass. It looks okay and usable, but Armored Core 6 just seems to be, man, the enemy count is really high in this game, so I suspect the compass is going to get very, very cluttered. Okay, so when you lock onto an enemy, like inside your lockbox, you can see their HP bar, which is their bar on the bottom, and then their stagger meter, or their ACS, up here. It will also have a flag if you're locked onto them and they don't know you're there. So I guess that'll be useful for people who are doing super sneaky stuff. So basically, you'll want to reduce this bar to 0, or you'll want to max this out. As the stagger meter fills up, it'll be yellow, and then when you break their posture, it'll turn red, and then you'll do double damage. They may lose some mobility. Yeah, we'll talk more about stagger later on in the video. As you land hits on enemy units, you will get some feedback information as to what's happening. If you land a regular hit, like it will mark hit, and then give you a damage number, and then like the amount of damage you reduce from their HP bar will be showed in red. So this is a lot of very good information, so you know exactly how effective your attacks are. There seem to be different responses depending on the enemy unit and what they're equipped with, or maybe the weapon you're hitting them with isn't very effective. So yeah, if enemies are using a shield to block your attack, it will mark shield. You can get ricochets, which I guess this is a direct hit, but it means the weapon is not very effective. Maybe you can change to a different weapon type, or try to target a different area, like on the enemy unit. And then some units will have armor. This is the Juggernaut boss, and it has it looks like just a huge plate like on its face. So yeah, it will have armor there and just does not take a lot of damage there. So yeah, there may be more response states in Armored Core 6, but these are just the 4 I've found so far. It looks like these response states also apply to the player AC as well. Alright, so here are damage numbers popping up for a good hit on the player AC. You'll see that there's the exact number of the AP being reduced, and also a visual representation of how much your HP bar is going down. And you also have different responses depending on what's going on. So if you have your shield up, you'll get a shield state. It looks like shields, at least on this hit that I captured, shields seem to reduce damage. I know that some shields have like high active states when they first activate, kind of like a parry almost, where the shields are more effective. I want to know if that state will reduce damage to 0, like, or not. Like completely mitigate it, but I haven't found any of that yet. The footage is very fast and frenetic, so it's kind of hard to know. Like, I'll definitely try to test that when we have our hands on the game. Of course, you also have ricochet states on the player AC. I believe in this shot I captured, it's just one of those teeny tiny helicopters using its regular helicopter machine gun on this giant robot, and it's not doing a lot of work. So yeah, it's a ricochet state. When you are locked onto an enemy boss or an enemy AC, the HP and ACS meters will be projected onto the top of the screen here. Of course, you also still have it on your lockbox, but yeah, this will give you a more obvious visual indicator of those two things, so that way you can pay more attention to what's going on. For bosses, it also seems to show like, hey, what is this thing called, or who is this person? So yeah, that's pretty different. Like in older Armored Core games, you would have no idea what the boss HP was like. So you would basically have to be more careful You don't know like how much fight this thing has left in it, which which kind of made like every risk you took feel more dramatic. But I guess now that you can see the enemy HP, well, it gives you a better gauge of like how well you're doing, and then when it's almost dead, you can take more risk to make sure you finish it off in time. Which there's pros and cons to everything, but I guess this is just how they're doing now. Yeah, one major thing that a lot of people have noticed from the earlier trailers, but is very, very obvious now with the gameplay reveal, is that the player AC and the camera are completely decoupled now in Armored Core 6. And this is a huge, huge deal, because for the entire franchise, your ability to see and look around is limited by the mobility of your AC, which makes a lot of sense. Like for instance, if you're a guy wearing like a ton of freaking armor and it takes you a long time to turn around, it would make sense that you wouldn't be able to just like spin on a dime and see like, hey, here are all these people surrounding me. So yeah, this is a really huge difference in Armored Core 6. So yeah, maybe this will ease like some of the quote-unquote clunkiness complaints for new players, but a lot of the old players are very weirded out by this, because if you decouple mobility from viewing, like your ability to turn your camera, how do you actually balance, like, hey, how do you balance those things? Here's this guy with a ton of freaking armor, but he can turn around as fast as everybody else. Like, how does that get squared? But yeah, maybe the game has a lot of different ways to deal with this. We do have reports that for the people who were playing the game and they got to try out the different leg types, they say for sure all the leg types feel really different. Especially tank legs. Tank legs definitely feel like you're just driving a very fast vehicle, which that's how they should feel. So I think they do manage to kind of maintain the essence of the weightiness and the realistic movement of ACs. So hopefully the decoupling of the camera is not that huge of an issue. But yeah, this is very different. So even while you're locked, your AC can turn into any direction. And it looks like while you can turn in any direction, when you fire, your AC is going to snap into the direction of the lock to fire the weapon. So that's how that's handled. Of course, this snap to lock or snap to direction is instantaneous, which doesn't make any sense, because it's a giant robot. It shouldn't be able to like zero frame turn around instantly without moving its body. But yeah, I guess Armored Core 6, it got a lot more video gamey. And of course, sometimes when you want to make a game more responsive, you're going to have to sacrifice a bit of realism and immersion. But yeah, that's just how they're going to do for this game. One thing that really stuck out to me from the gameplay footage of Armored Core 6 is that the energy management looks pretty different from the other games. So that, notice that when you're using your energy meter, there's a little bit of a delay before it starts recovering. Of course, when you're flying up or you're quick boosting or using your assault boost, it's going to get consumed. In the older games, depending on your generator and your energy consumption of your build, your energy just starts recovering right away as long as you're not using it. But in Armored Core 6, there's a little bit of a delay before it starts doing that. And then, of course, when you drain your meter down to 0, you're going to get redlined, which in the older games, if you redline your energy, basically you'd be lucky if you still had an asshole like after. Yeah, it's like getting redlined is a huge thing you really need to avoid in the older games, but it looks like in Armored Core 6, people just redline their energy on the reg is like normal. So yeah, that's different. Yeah, like I can't quite remember, but yeah, I do think in Armored Core 4, like in Gen 4, you can't really redline your energy in Gen 4, but when you zero it out, it takes time to recover, and then you have like minimum energy you need to expend for your mobility. So it is still very dangerous to use all of your energy in Gen 4. But yeah, so when you're redlined, it looks like it's gonna take some time to recover. It looks like, yeah, you can recover energy mid-air, and you can recover from redlining mid-air in Armored Core 6, but it looks like the recovery is much faster if you have your feet on the ground. Yeah, so from what I understand, when you're redlined, the energy output of your generator will determine how quickly you'll recover. The speed at which the meter like fills back up after you used a little bit of it seems to be almost the same speed no matter what, from what I've seen from footage, but maybe people can point out other examples. But yeah, like a lot of the footage looks the same to me. But yeah, we'll see how big of a difference energy output on generators and energy consumption on builds will be like. Yeah, I'm really weirded out by the behavior of energy bars in Armored Core 6, because when I play Armored Core, I like to use like very high, like low capacity but high output generators with very low energy consumption parts on my AC. Basically, I will use a lot of energy, but I recover a lot of it. Basically recover it back as fast as I use it. That's how I play Armored Core, so yeah, seeing this behavior like in the footage we've seen so far is very weird to me, but yeah, it's just gonna be different, and we'll see how it behaves when everybody gets their hands on it. Yeah, when you're ground boosting, like you'll have a button to like turn it on and off. When it's off, you'll be walking, and when you turn it on, you'll be gliding along the ground. The regular ground boost does not consume energy anymore, which, yeah, I guess it was just, I mean, you kind of are using your boosters, but yeah, not very much of it, so I guess they kind of just cut out the middleman. They're just going to have energy used when you're, flying vertically, or you're using your assault booster to really close distance, or when you're using a quick boost to, do some evasion. So, yeah, energy is not used for ground boosting, and I guess that's a nice change. I guess it doesn't it doesn't make a little bit of sense in terms of immersion, but yeah, that's fine. A huge change in Armored Core 6 is that energy weapons do not consume energy from your meter, but instead they have to manage heat. This is an extremely drastic change from the older games, because that like the whole point of energy weapons, and they were just so closely tied with your energy meter. Basically, like in the old games, if you had energy weapons, like and depending on how much you use them, it would limit your mobility options. But now they no longer do that. I think we even see people use fire energy weapons in Armored Core 6 while they're redlined. So yeah, they don't use your energy bar at all. So yeah, that's very different. But yeah, so instead of using from your energy bar, they have to manage heat. which I guess that makes sense in a way. So yeah, so with energy weapons, you're gonna have to manage heat, so you're gonna have to decide, hey, am I going to just do damage over time, or am I gonna fire all of my weapons off right now to do burst damage, or am I gonna fire my weapon charged or uncharged? Like, am I gonna do a lot of damage right now with a charged shot, or am I going to just kind of pick at my enemy with uncharged shots here and there? So that's gonna be wildly different. In Vaati's footage, he when he's fighting the Strider, he uses a quad leg to basically do an aerial hover build, so he can climb the Strider easier. But he's also using laser rifles at the same time. And in older games, like, these are like mutually exclusive things. You can't have aerial mobility and energy weapons at the same time. Unless you're like a hacker or something. So, like, seeing him do this, like in Armored Core 6, just like, it made me recoil in horror. Not that the change is bad, it's just so different. Like, it's like, I don't know, it's like watching your dog use a litter box or something. It's like, hey, you're not a cat, like, what's going on here? But yeah, that's wildly different. And, yeah, I'm not really sure why they wanted to change this. I guess they just wanted players to just have more freedom with weapons and mobility, and not have the weapons affect the mobility outside of things like weight and balance. So, yeah, that's wildly different from the older games, and, you know, I'm still emotionally dealing with it. but yeah, that's how it is now. Yeah, that does make me wonder, though. Do energy weapons have ammo cost now or not? Yeah, so one of the main reasons people used energy weapons in the old games is because they don't have ammo cost. And you know, that was kind of the give and take. Like, hey, like, I'm gonna have to manage my energy meter with this type of weapon, but it's gonna help me with expenses. You know, when I complete this mission, I can hurt people and not have to, you know, pay extra money for the ammo. So yeah, I'm wondering if energy weapons will be changed in that way. And then also, you know, your energy weapons will, you know, do different types of damage to your targets depending on how they build out. Like, hey, do they have ballistic defense? Do they have energy defense? So yeah, there's that whole dynamic, but I suppose that will be maintained in Armored Core 6. It looks like there are going to be a lot of mechanics that are unlocked through, like, operating system tuning. So this in Armored Core 6, you have to collect OS chips through the arena, and then you use the OS chips to basically get permanent upgrades. And some of these things are just kind of like basic mechanics in older games, but yeah, you have to unlock them in Armored Core 6, which I feel that Armored Core games are better when you just have all of your abilities out of the box, but I suppose it is a lot to manage, so I guess doing it through an upgrade system makes more sense for introducing the game to newbies, so that they're like, oh, here's this ability, I have to unlock it. And, you know, that kind of gives them the presence of mind of, hey, how do I use this thing properly? So, things you can unlock through OS tuning are things like the overboost kick is one thing, quick turns are another thing, and yeah, a bunch of, and then hanger bays, for if you want to store hand weapons on your back, that's unlocked through OS tuning. Yeah, lots of things like that. Also, yeah, you can unlock the ability to eject weapons that are, well, you're supposed to eject them when they're empty, but I suppose you can just throw them away whenever. So that way, you know, if there's a weapon you're not going to use, you may as well lose the weight and the energy consumption, like, of running it. So yeah, that's why you would want to eject. So yeah, things like that. Different types of mechanics you can unlock through OS tuning. Speaking of quick turns, they're very similar to Gen 4. However, they have one more thing that's new. So in Gen 4, when you quick turn, it's kind of determined, the amount you turn is kind of determined by your legs and the boosters you have equipped. So sometimes you can quick turn and just kind of spin around like forever. I do that sometimes, and just to like for the lulz. But Armored Core 6 seems to specify the exact angles you have. So you can quick turn like to the sides, right and left. But there's also a specific quick turn that turns you 180. So perfectly spins you to face the other way. So that's really interesting that they made quick turning a lot more precise and less, well, just kind of less loosey-goosey like it was in Gen 4. So yeah, that's a very interesting change. It looks like quick turns might be performed with a completely different button from your quick boost, which I found a little strange, but yeah, so you have a button for quick boosts, and you also have a button for for toggling your regular boost. And quick turns seem to be performed with the toggle regular button, which I found sort of strange and unnecessary to decouple those two things. But yeah, that's gonna be. Yeah, the button management on this game might be insane, like if you want a quick turn, but yeah, there you go. Oh, speaking of the need to quick turn or not, yeah, let's talk about lock-on in Armored Core 6. So yeah, there are two types of lock-on, and yeah, a lot of you smarty pantses, yeah, you were right, there is a hard lock, but yeah, your soft lock basically behaves like Armored Core 5, and you have a hard lock, which is referred to as aim assist, which, that actually might be a misnomer, like once I tell you exactly how hard lock works. So yeah, so if you click the right stick, you'll enter aim assist, which is a hard lock. So what hard lock will do is it will basically manage your camera for you, and it will automatically quick turn for you to face in the correct direction. So yeah, it looks like the vets were right. Yeah, it is a hard lock. Yeah, so yeah, the soft lock can be broken. I found a clip here of yeah, an enemy like flying overhead, and it breaks the soft lock. And from people's reports, it looks like the hard lock cannot be broken. Yeah, and you're always facing the right direction no matter what, which is, that's gonna change the gameplay a lot from the older games. Yeah, so with a hard lock, it kind of means that players can't really outmaneuver each other anymore, because they're always gonna know exactly where you are, and they're always pointing their weapons at you. So, yeah, I guess it's just gonna turn into, yeah, who's better at dodging this and that, who has better timing, who manages their cooldowns better. So yeah, that'll be wildly different from the older games. Yeah, so the hard lock isn't perfect. So it does manage your camera for you, but it looks like its target tracking is less good than the manual aim. So yeah, if you look closely at the footage, there's kind of like this secondary reticle inside the lockbox while you're using aim assist. And yeah, your FCS, it'll have like 3 different ranges that it has to operate on: close, mid, and then long. So this secondary reticle indicates like, hey, do I have a good lock right now? And if you fire, if the reticle is trailing, that means like you don't have a good line of sight right now to fire your weapon. So yeah, the hard lock isn't perfect, and you're gonna whiff some stuff. So yeah, it's not like an aimbot like or something. So yeah, people don't need to freak out about it that much. But yeah, it's gonna be a lot different from the older games, and that's, yeah, we'll see how it does like when we get our hands on it. When you restart at a checkpoint, And, you know, restarting means you died. You got your ass handed to you. Yeah, so when you have to restart at a checkpoint, you can just, you know, choose to restart like as is, but you can change your loadout. It looks like you can swap to parts that you already own, but if you need to change your build any more than that, you'll need to abandon and restart the mission. So that means that at a checkpoint, you have no access to the shop. You just have access to your garage for things that you already own. So if you require drastic changes, yeah, that's not going to happen at a checkpoint. So yeah, so checkpoints and changing parts at checkpoints, it's still very immersion breaking. Like, it doesn't make sense like how this AC can like swap out like things, but yeah, just being able to like get new parts out of the ether, I guess, is not, they weren't willing to go that far with the checkpoints. So yeah, they kind of ended up at like a middle point, like with the checkpoints. So yeah, that was a interesting thing to discover. So from interviews with the director, we know that Armored Core 6 will have multiple endings. As you beat the game, you'll enter New Game Plus, and that will probably unlock different missions, which will unlock different story routes. So yeah, multiple endings confirmed. So from looking at OS tuning, we know that there are 3 different damage types for weapons, and those are energy weapons, explosive weapons, and kinetic weapons. Yeah, so obviously things like laser rifles will be energy, ballistic machine guns will be kinetic. Explosive damage is a little ambiguous in my opinion. I guess that could be things like missiles, like either missiles or explosive, or they could be kinetic. I suppose it depends. There seems to be a wild variety of missiles like in this game, but yeah, we have 3 types confirmed. Yeah, so the older games tend to just have energy and kinetic. I suppose Gen 4 introduced Kojima weapons, but they basically behaved exactly like energy weapons, except they also did more damage to your primal armor, which is kind of like a secondary, like a barrier, like defense thing. Yeah, so we might have some of that type of stuff going on. I'm guessing things like explosive weapons will do a lot more stagger damage to enemy ACS. So Armored Core 5 did have like a kind of a rock, paper, scissors, like 3 damage type system going on with it. They had Armored Core 5 had thermal, chemical, and kinetic weapons. Yeah, so I'm actually not a huge fan of that rock, paper, scissors system from Armored Core 5. It was a great idea, I just don't think it was implemented well. Like, it made the balance of the game very difficult. And just throughout my whole experience with Gen 5, it always felt like no matter what I did, I just couldn't really do a lot of damage. Like, even if I, picked, a decently good, like damage type, like, I just wasn't doing a lot of damage. And for some reason, no matter what I did, like, my AC was just, like, getting shredded to pieces by the enemy. Like, I just, like, there just wasn't a lot of parts that, kind of fit my needs, but also had good defense at the same time. So, so yeah, that was very awkward, like, in Gen 5. I'm sure a lot of people are fans of that system, but yeah, it just, yeah, I don't know, I didn't like how it felt. So yeah, hopefully the balance is a little bit different, like for this in Armored Core 6. Okay, so from here, yeah, those are some of my general findings from just reviewing the gameplay review footage, and then just doing some reading here and there. From here, we're going to talk about some findings that people are reporting on their own individual videos, and then their interviews with the director of the game. And I suppose I did not ask permission to use any of this footage, but yeah, am I really hurting anybody here? I don't know, but yeah, like I will attribute and link all the stuff that I'm gonna talk about here. Okay, so from Iron Pineapple's findings, he interviewed the director, and from what he's played for the hands-on event, so they had access to Chapter 1, and Chapter 1 was composed of 11 missions, and he was told that this is about 20% of the game's content. And if you math that, if you math that correctly, I didn't always get it right. So if you math that correctly, that kind of says like the game will either be 5 chapters for a total of 50 missions. I think there was like another video where they just kind of flat out said it'd be 100 missions, but they didn't really explain where they got that from. So I think that guess of 100 might be incorrect, because this 20% figure was direct out of the director's interview. So I think that's the more reliable number. We also know that it said that it'll be about 50 to 60 hours from other sources. I think that might have been Fextra Life who said that. Also from Iron Pineapple's interview with the director, he asked about the development of the stagger meter. So weirdly enough, everyone is calling it a Sekiro stagger mechanic, but the director said that this mechanic was actually developed independently. It was developed specifically just for Armored Core 6. It just sort of ended up mechanically similar to Sekiro. So that just really tickles me. Like, it's just it's Armored Core 6 stagger. It's not Sekiro. It just ended up being similar. So yeah, like, I mean, I didn't play Sekiro, but from what I've seen of its like its stance break and stuff, so it doesn't even really behave like Armored Core 6. Like in a Sekiro, when you break somebody's posture, it lets you do like a shinobi execution like attack or something. It's like a critical attack with a choreographed move or something. But yeah, that doesn't happen in Armored Core 6. All that happens is like, the enemy trips like once, and then they take double damage for like a few seconds. So in my opinion, it kind of actually behaves a little bit more like stagger in Final Fantasy, like, or something. But yeah, like, I guess we can stop calling it a Sekiro stagger now. So, yeah, whatever. Yeah, I'm just gonna call it a stance break or stagger or whatever. Yeah, we can stop mentioning Sekiro now. Okay, Vaati's findings. I'll just say this, like, Vaati probably has the best presentation, like, on this. He has a lot of experience playing Armored Core games now. Of course, he only started a few months ago, but yeah, he has a lot of experience now. And he went through and tried a lot of different builds. He went back and S-ranked a bunch of the missions. And he has a lot of insight onto the mechanics and just like Armored Core like philosophy and differences from this game from the old games. So yeah, I highly recommend you look at his presentation. Yeah, homeboy, he doesn't always get everything right, but neither do I. So, just don't take his word as the word of God. But yeah, he does have the best presentation. Go check it out. I'll link it, of course. Okay, so in his interview with the director, he talks about the fact that when you die, you don't really generate debt. Of course, like, the game will punish you for dying. Like, I'm sure you'll have to pay for all the repairs and stuff like that. But in Armored Core 6, like, going into debt doesn't really it's not really a thing like anymore. So I guess all the fan theories about, you know, managing debt and all the human plus thing is not correct, at least mechanically. Like, human plus might still be a story thing, but yeah, like, it's just... so the director said he actually really likes the debt mechanic because, you know, it kind of makes the merc lifestyle just all the more real. But he said that for Armored Core 6, they were trying to get the players to value, you know, tinkering in the garage, which, you know, that's already kind of a difficult thing to get new people into. So yeah, they wanted to do away with debt to just make credits a lot easier to get so that you can, you know, buy weapons and parts and just try out different things. So yeah, I guess they're more concerned about making things easier for people to understand the good qualities of the game, rather than just punishing them horribly for the difficulty of the game. But yeah, like, that's not to say the game won't be hard, and that's not to say like it won't be, you know, horrifically punishing for people who, you know, enjoy that CBT. But but yeah, no more debt. Here's a detail about energy weapons I probably should have mentioned earlier, but Vaati said that there are different types of energy weapons, like, yeah, there are laser rifles, and then there are pulse guns. I think that enemy AC that, like, he's obviously Evangel, like, from the older games, but yeah, he has a pulse gun on his left hand, I think. So yeah, Vaati was saying, like, in addition to heat management, the different types of energy weapons, they're good for breaking down energy defenses. For instance, if you have a pulse shield or barrier, it's gonna be easily broken by a pulse weapon. So, like, yeah, that's a really interesting mechanic. So I think the final boss of Chapter 1 is that AC sitting in that crazy, like, chair. Like, it reminds me of, like, a Gundam sitting in a mobile armor, but yeah, its name is Balteus. So the Balteus, it has something that looks like primal armor from Gen 4. So this is a pulse barrier. So that barrier is more highly affected by pulse energy weapons. So yeah, you'll see in Vaati's footage, he actually is dual-wielding pulse guns to break down the barrier, like, really, really fast. He said that build ended up, it was good for breaking the barrier, but managing the cooldowns was just kicking his ass. So yeah, that didn't quite work out for him well, but yeah, that's an interesting mechanic. I'll note that that sounds like a great idea, but I haven't seen other types of shields in the game yet. I just... the bucklers and stuff, they all look like pulse shields. So I'm wondering, are there explosive shields? Are there kinetic shields? That'd be cool. Are there, like, just regular energy laser shields? Or something? Like, yeah, I don't know. Okay, so Vaati's one of those guys who went through and played all the games. Like, it's nice that he has the time and money to do that stuff, like, all in a few months, but yeah, so from playing and experiencing all the older games, he kind of really understood the veteran position of, yeah, Hardlock is gonna change the spirit of Armored Core. And so he talked about this a little bit with the director. Like, he was saying, yeah, how is Hardlock gonna affect PvP? Like, people can no longer, like, outmaneuver each other because of Hardlock. Because in the old games, you know, a lot of the death came from your positioning. Like, people were trying to outflank each other, trying to get behind each other, just... Yeah, and that took a lot of skill and practice. Like, I must have put thousands of hours, like, into, you know, just doing that. But yeah, that's not a thing anymore. So yeah, so then he asked the director, like, well, what do you do now? Like, in PvP? And so the director said, Yeah, you're just gonna do other stuff. So the director, he says, yeah, there's like, even though you can't outmaneuver each other anymore by flanking or breaking lock, there are things like critical ranges for weapons, you know, like close, mid, long. So people are gonna fight for control of distance. He says make use of the stagger meter, which I guess that makes sense. I kind of don't like being forced to use mechanics if I don't want to, but I don't know, he's the director. And then he says that flying overhead will generally give you an advantage. So we didn't get a lot of detail on what he meant by that. Like, I don't think he means that by saying like flying overhead will just make all the enemy attacks miss. I don't think that's what he means. I think what he's saying is that for PvP where there's a lot of units on the field, generally if you fly over people, they're gonna pay less attention to you. So I think that's what that means. Of course, that won't always be true. Sometimes if you're on a field and nobody's locked onto anything, the guy flying really high out of cover is gonna be noticed first. So yeah, just use your shit wisely. Don't pop out of cover. You don't have to. Okay, so there's what I picked up from Vaati. Yeah, he also reiterates multiple endings from New Game Plus. Here is some footage from Famitsu's channel. Yeah, so I think they're like a Japanese game review magazine or something. So I'd like to note, like, I'm not shitting on the game for this, but from Famitsu's footage, the camera is still really fucky around walls. So the Famitsu player, he falls in between some buildings, and the camera just does not know what to do. Like, the AC becomes invisible, and you can't really see what's going on. So he ends up like having to jump out of the buildings or something. But so seeing this, it actually doesn't surprise me. Like, I don't know, we're in 2023 and cameras still behave like shit around walls. So, why would Armored Core be the game to solve that problem? But I wish it was fixed, but yeah, I'm just saying, problems still exist. And, it's not Armored Core 6's fault, but yeah, that's gonna happen. Try not to fall in between things. I could have sworn this was also on Famitsu's footage, but I can't find it anymore. Yeah, so on release day, I watched a video, but I can't seem to find the clip anymore. So yeah, so in this clip I remember, like, yeah, this MT got destroyed next to a door that opened. And of course when it blew up, it like ragdolled. And then the MT's debris, like, it's just started like glitching like into the wall, into the door as the door is opening, and it was like the door is like lifting its quartz up as as it was opening. I was like, wow, that's really funny looking. Not to say that it's bad, like, just stupid shit like that makes me laugh. But yeah, I just can't find the clip anymore. But yeah, if anyone can find it, like, just try to link it for me or something. But yeah, yeah, I guess the ragdoll physics might be funny. I got a lot of laughs out of the ragdoll physics in Elden Ring. But yeah, hopefully they'll be goofy in Armored Core 6 as well. Okay, this is not in Famitsu's footage, but they mention in their article here, I'll link it below, when your hands are empty, your AC throws a punch when you hit that attack button. So yeah, that's very, very new for Armored Core. I guess that's sort of how things behaved in Elden Ring. Like, if you were empty hand, you would just, like, throw hands. So yeah, they mentioned that throwing hands doesn't do a lot of damage. But yeah, I guess that's the devs just don't want you to be completely helpless if you run out of ammo. They also said that if both of your hands are empty, you will throw a 2-hit punch combo. So that's seems to be sort of the only way you can quote-unquote dual-wield melee. So, yeah, I had no idea if that would be a feature, but yeah, that's pretty interesting. I'm sure there will be people trying to do punch-only runs in Armored Core 6. I might be one of those psychopaths, but yeah, like we'll see how long it takes me to wear out my love of dual-wielding machine guns. Okay, on this channel, I believe it's V-Jump Shueisha. Jeez, I've never tried to say that out loud before. I'm probably getting it horribly wrong. Anyway, on this Japanese channel, this player seems to be very, very good. Like, he seems very comfortable with the mobility, and he's very aggressive about closing distance. It does cause him to die a lot, but yeah, watching his gameplay was very enjoyable. Anyway, yeah, so at 4 minutes in his video, we have an example of him using the punch. So I think he does it by accident. He is using a machine gun in his right hand, but it runs out towards the end of the mission. And yeah, he starts throwing punches, and then, oh, he realizes, oh, my gun is out. And I ejected it, so yeah, and he punches a couple of times by accident. And then he seems to avoid using that hand after a little bit. I guess that sort of answers the question. In the reveal trailer of Armored Core 6, you know, when they first said, yeah, hey, this game exists, the AC at the very end with the visor on its face, it had an empty hand, and then it pulled a gun out from its shoulder holster. Now, we were wondering, hey, why does this guy have an empty hand? And I guess this is why. I guess he just wanted to punch people, so yeah, that answers that question. You know what would have been cool? Like if you had like an empty shoulder slot, that should have allowed you to do something like a shoulder check or something. I think that would be very fun, but I kind of doubt they implemented anything like that. But yeah, maybe in the future that would be pretty fun to have. Okay, also from V-Jump's footage, if you fall out of the area, it looks like, yeah, it won't be an instant death or failure, like the older games, but you will lose a chunk of your HP, and then the game will respawn you on top of a platform. So, yeah, I'm glad it's not horribly punishing, but yeah, that's how that happens. So now I'm curious, are there boundaries, like, horizontally that exist? I think I've seen the boundaries, like, in some of the gameplay footage, but I don't know what happens if you crosses it. So, if you cross a horizontal boundary, like, does it just act like an invisible wall, or does it also, like, chunk your HP and then, you know, stick you back where you should be standing? So, yeah, I'm curious about that. Yeah, I do know that bosses, when you encounter a boss, like, the game seems to put up a barrier and does not allow you to run away. Okay, and here's something I found wildly interesting. Like, so in V-Jump's footage, he shows you resupplying before a boss. And so when you hit this resupply button, Walter will send in this thing that looks like a flying refrigerator. Although I guess it kind of reminds me a lot of Ground Gundam's weapons rack's backpack. And yeah, so it's just like this drone that flies in on boosters, and it just opens up and resupplies your heals, it resupplies your ammo, it fixes your AP. So having something like this, it kind of makes me curious, like, why were the repair kits necessary if you have checkpoints that can resupply you? But yeah, I guess I've heard it discussed that like, let's say, like, instead of having low AP and then 3 repairs, you just converted the repairs to more HP and you had a total. So when an enemy lands a hit on you, like, if you have that higher HP pool, it wouldn't feel like a big deal. You know what I mean? But if your total AP were lower and you had heals, like, enemies are suddenly a lot more threatening. So while I feel that the repair kits completely destroy a lot of the immersion of, you know, this mech simulator game, I guess gameplay wise it makes sense if you want to make the enemies feel threatening. But yeah, that's, yeah, so yeah, we have resupply mechanics in terms of these flying backpacks. I think they might be called Sherpas, but I only heard one person say this. So yeah, I guess we'll find out, like, for sure, like, later on. But yeah, let me know what you guys find out about it. Okay guys, I think that might be all I've found for now. Of course, there were a lot of details and discussion I didn't want to belabor you guys with. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff floating out there now, and it might not really be feasible for me to catch, like, most, even, like, or all of it, or even most of it. Yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, I'll try to discuss what I find interesting, but yeah, we got a lot of information this week, and I kind of don't really have the time right now to just kind of go over all of it. But yeah, like, I'm gonna present this right now, and I'm gonna be away for a little while, and yeah, once I return to the channel, I think yeah, I'll do what I can. Yeah, I believe as of now, people are getting in line and getting tickets to get their hands on the game at those live events in Japan. And yeah, we're already learning a few details from there, but yeah, let's talk about that later. Anyway guys, if you enjoyed this video or found the information valuable, I would really appreciate it if you left a like, or if you subscribed if you want to see future coverage of Armored Core 6. I, of course, will do my best to cover whatever news or details that we learn about, and then, you know, I'll be playing the game myself on the channel. But yeah, I guess, yeah, that's gonna be it for now. Hopefully you got a lot out of this, and we'll see you next time.